what's your take on the involvement and inclusion of like online curriculums and snacks of learning and, obviously active coaching and this kind of regular longitudinal approach to learning, because we're actually now doing a lot more of this kind of work. And I'm curious from your HR L&D perspective, because honestly, there's still a lot of people who think it's the 2-day course off the shelf. As you mentioned, a lot of people don't want off the shelf, they want bespoke. So what are you seeing in terms of this shift in how people develop themselves and are developed in the community of their businesses?
Yeah, it's interesting. It comes back to your relationship with the organisation. Most people, and rightly so, have held quite a sort of paternal relationship with their organisations, and there's always been an expectation that the organisation will support you and train you and make sure that you're fed and watered and all those sorts of things, and then sum you up and off you go. We just know that approach doesn't work, and it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. The disruption in the learning space is just phenomenal. And again, I think it's a great opportunity. It's pretty exciting. But what I really believe wholeheartedly, and I've practiced this myself, so I'm my own guinea pig here, is I've always had a love of learning, and I'm always testing things out and experimenting with stuff, because I don't fundamentally trust what the book says. I don't fundamentally trust what the subject matter expert tells me. I'm going to take all that information and I'm going to apply it, and I'm going to practice it, and I'm going to make it my own. But then that means that every solution I come up with is quite unique and ideally bespoke, but very focused on the outcome I need. I don't really, which is a good thing in some ways, don't really want to follow a process. What I want to do is build a process that's fit for purpose. And if I apply that to learning, this mindset of people taking ownership for their own learning and their own careers and driving their own success means that they really have to sort of step up and be curious. And it's really, really difficult if that's not your natural bent to all of a sudden become curious, because the best self-directed learners are naturally curious. So my nervousness or my worry is that if you're not innately curious to begin with, and would like to think that that's the kind of world that we're building and opening up for people with all the great technology we have, is those people will be left behind and they will be wondering how they're going to learn the skills. But there's really no best practice strategy. I think the e-learning piece has its place, and there's a wondrous amount of material out there. The challenge is not to be overwhelmed with it and to be very discerning about the e-learning in which you engage in. It's not all great. Some things are better than others, but it has a time and a place, especially if you need sort of some hotspot reaffirmation of something you've learned and you just want to kind of go back and check the principles and stuff like that. But it just requires everyone to be on their toes, and the face-to-face stuff absolutely still has a place. I really believe that deep learning happens in the classroom with a really highly skilled facilitator and a coach. But you've really got to be able to tap into a smorgasbord of choices, and also look at the way you like to learn. Some of the work I've been doing here at Canon is really trying to help people to understand that, a podcast is a great way to learn. Even watching the kids play soccer is a great way to learn. You might be able to take some lessons from that and apply it in a sales situation. So try not to box yourself into, particular ways of thinking. And it comes back to that whole concept of unlearning. You've got to kind of let go of some of those traditional ways and lean into some stuff that you perhaps might not be feeling so comfortable with. But I guarantee you, because I've seen it within myself and so many other people, it's so refreshing and it's invigorating, and it gives back a whole new perspective and energy, which, you know, the viral effect of that across the sales team or any team in the organisation is just a joy to behold. You see people highly engaged, excited, energised, you know, the productivity's doubled, the money's rolling in the door, and everyone kind of scratches their head and goes, wow, what the hell happened? Because it's kind of the magic of the system. And if you're working within the system instead of against the system, you're going to get a good result.
Yeah, I always look at the sales strategy, if you like, as the navigational system, which helps us to direct who we're dealing with, what we're taking to market, why us, and so on. And then you've got the processes in place, which is the operating system, which shows people how to do what they need to do. But we don't want people on train tracks because that's too limiting. But we want enough wriggle room and agency within that system that we're operating in to be able to make it our own. And I think if we can create those kind of environments, which leads me to this whole sales leadership and the stewardship from sales leaders and their ability to be able to drive that forward, because they've also got to engage senior management as well as everyone else within their business.